Hi, friends, this is Kathy, and welcome back to our Friday Night Live here on livestream on our YouTube channel. So let me just make sure we've got everything working. Audio and visual is all right? All right, great. Give me a thumbs up, friends. So I see a few friends here that are logged on. Thank you so much for my family for logging in. And American Legal Focus, thank you, my friend. You are such a great supporter, and I can't wait to watch your live stream on Sunday. So, friends, are you frustrated with your current job hunting, or are you having difficulty, thinking about being positive with your current job hunting? So tonight is the night where we're going to be talking about how to be positive when you're searching for a new career, or if you're doing a job hunting right now. So you do want to stick around until the end of our session so you can get the full value of our session. So I'm going to try to work it out until just for about 30 minutes. And if we have questions during our session tonight, then go ahead, just put it on the chat box and I will respond and pull up your comments, pull up your questions so everybody can see it for the ones that are watching on replay. All right, so let me go ahead and check and see where we are. Let me just go scroll down. All right, so you might be wondering, why am I qualified to discuss job hunting and job interview tips and things like that, right? So it's because I am a hiring manager and I do have experience with interviews. I interview frontline applicants and also leaders. So I am a registered nurse and I work in the medical field. I work in healthcare. So part of my role is to interview nurse leaders in my job, and also some frontliners from time to time. So I want to share with you, my friends, my experience as a hiring manager on what I'm looking for when I'm doing interview, and what are some of the potential qualities for somebody before they get offered, before they're offered the job. So, all right, we have Michelle. Thank you for logging in. Thank you so much for supporting my channel. All right, so just a bit of background. So I was laid off once it would be the first time and the last time, and it didn't feel good at that time. It was something that I didn't expect that's going to happen. There was nothing happened. There was no incident or any occurrence or anything like that that would have led me to believe or to think that that they're going to remove me from the position that I held at that time. So when I was called to HR and they dropped the bomb, they dropped the big news. You couldn't say anything. I mean, for me at least, I couldn't say anything because I was surprised about it. And so I went home and talked to my husband, and we talked about it. I remember the feeling of just being drained out, feeling embarrassed, feeling ashamed. I even felt like I'm useless. Like, what happened? I thought I was good, and what happened? And it felt like I was not valued at all. So, you heard about the saying that if a door closes, then another door opens, right? Well, it's not as easy as that. It's not like you open the door and another door opens up, right? It takes a process, and it takes you go through different emotions. It's kind of like almost like the grieving process from Kubler-Ross. It's kind of like a grieving process because you go through different emotions before you can fully accept that, hey, wait a minute, I don't have a job. and I need to find a job, right? So going through that process, after feeling sorry for myself, after feeling that I'm useless and just frustrated, then goes on our next phase of blaming. So either I was blaming myself, and then I was also blaming my previous employer. So I was blaming myself. I'm like, how could I not see it coming? Or why did I not do things differently? Or I was blaming my employer, like, how could you? You didn't see my value. You didn't value my potential. And the whole shebang of calling them names and things like that. So that did happen to me. I felt that, and I said it. I thought it. And so you go through that, right? And then I went through the feeling of acceptance. Well, you know what? It is what it is. That didn't happen in 30 minutes, my friends. It didn't happen in increments of 5, 10, 30 minutes, right? It happened for me. It happened about a few days, a day or two, just feeling that frustrated. For some people, it may take about a week for them to be on that phase of, embarrassed and ashamed that you don't have a job. And then another week for the next phase. But for me, I think at that time it took a few days. Now, after the blaming phase, then goes the acceptance, right? Like, oh, well, you know what? Hey, it is what it is. And I'm just going to have to accept what happened to me, right? So this happened years ago, about a decade ago. And I can't think of our current situation right now with COVID. And I'm only going to be speaking about United States. I'm only going to be speaking about United States. I don't know the current status of the other countries, and I'm sure that it's pretty similar. So I have a quick presentation here for you, my friends. And let me just share my screen, because I'm thinking about the United States and their current situation, our current situation of the corona, and how a lot of people are out of jobs right now. So let me go ahead and present this, okay? And my friends, if you are watching on replay, you can go ahead and put your comment on the comment section down below. Ask me any questions, any experience of you or your loved one getting laid off, and what did you guys do? What helped you through this process, right? So here we are. This is our session for today, right? For tonight. Now, this came from the United States Labor and Statistics record. I mean, it's all from Google. This is kind of blurry. I hope you guys can see it. But this is a year-over-year comparison of unemployment rate by state here in the United States, okay? So the blue line is the 2019, and then the orange line is the 2020. So this is May 2019 compared to the orange line, which is May of 2020 this year, right? So look at the jump of unemployment rate, and rightfully so, it's because of COVID, right? So you can see the different states, and I did cut the middle part of the states here. Is in alphabetical order. Look at California at 16.3%. And what is this one? Hang on. And then we have 22.6% in Hawaii. I did cut off the middle part. So we're jumping down to Nevada right away. Nevada is at 25.3. Now I'm in Texas, so I'm going to look at Texas. Texas is at 13.0. So you can see like tripled, quadrupled, more than that for some of the states for the unemployment rate. Now let's go ahead and take a look at unemployment by age group. Okay, so again, this is a comparison from a year-over-year comparison from May of 2019 and May of 2020. The blue bar is from last year. Compare that to this year. Look at that, 16 to 19 years old, the employment rate skyrocketed, doubled to more than doubled, right? 29.9, about 30%. 20 to 24 years old, 23.2%. I'm thinking this is percentage. 25 to 34 is 13.4. 35 to 44 is 10.2. It goes down, right? It goes down, and the trend is kind of like the same. It's just that it quadrupled as compared to last year over year comparison. Let's go ahead and go through this slide. This is unemployment by industry. So here we go again with a year over year comparison of May 2019 to May 2020. Look at, these are the industry, okay? So I'm in healthcare. So mining, quarrying, and oil and gas extraction, 8.4. You can see that construction is 12.7. Wholesale and retail trade. Retail trade would be, I would say these are the malls, right? And the stores. 15.1, triple. Transportation and utilities, 14.2. I guess this includes, I guess it includes the airfare. And look at leisure and hospitality. Oh, I can't pronounce that. Hospitality. It's 35.9. That is incredible. Leisure and hospitality are what? Our hotels, our vacations, and anything that you would take just to take a family vacation or whatnot. Look at that. And that is because of the corona, right? Okay, so looking at the unemployment rate by race and ethnicity year over year, comparing May 2019 to May 2020, we've got the white, which is at 12.4, quadrupled more than that. Well, quadrupled, that's right. Black or African American, you see that at 16.8, jump from 6.2 last year. We've got the Asian ethnicity here at 15 compared to 2.5. That's a lot. That's a big gap. Hispanic or Latino at 17.6 as compared to last year's 4.2. So what do you all think about that? That is a quite an interesting graph, and I would say so. Hi, Judy. Thank you for logging in. Our friend Asian American Legal Focus is on. Yes, so those are very interesting statistics coming from the United States Labor and Statistics record, right? So going back to my story, I can't imagine all those people. And here I am giving you my experience when I lost my job a decade ago, going through all those reasons and blaming and just, going through the process of almost like grieving, right? And here we are, there's nobody else to blame, no one else to blame, no entity to blame except for COVID, right? And so how do you recover from that? So going back to my story of being, laid off 10 years ago, I got to snap out of it. I have bills to pay. I can't just be, depressed at home. I have to be productive. And so I think that took a few days for me to, maybe a week, I would say, for me to get over it and start looking for a job. So if you remember, if you have joined us on our live stream a couple of weeks ago, I showed you, my friends, our monthly expenses, which is about $5,000 a month. And that is without cars and without credit cards. Now, 10 years ago, we were paying for car notes and we were paying for credit card debts. So our $5,000 a month wasn't, it was more than that at that time, as far as expense and bills that have to get paid. So I have to do something. I have to snap out of it and, and go out there and look for a job, right? So here's what I just want to categorize. So on this session, we're not going to be talking about, I see it as two categories, the entry level, okay? And then there's also the corporate level. Okay, so obviously I'm on the corporate level, but looking back at the graph that I showed you, the higher percentage of unemployment by age is from 16 to 19, from 16 to, I would say like 35 years old, I would say. The highest is 16 and 20, mid-20s, I think. So those are the entry-level jobs or mid-level jobs, what I would say. So what I want to cover tonight is, tips on interviews and how to ace your interviews for our population, for our fellow men and fellow women out there within that age group, within that age range. Okay. So let's start off with, oh, you know what? I have something in here. Let me share my screen again. Oh, all right. So I have a few more slides to show, and then I'm going to just start talking. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to put it on the chat box. And if you're watching this on replay, go ahead and put it in the comment section. Remember, a couple of weeks ago, we showed you the minimum pay rate here in the United States, which is $7.25. It's not going to get you that far. And remember, with our monthly expense, it's not going to cut it, and our expense is really not so much different than anybody else, regardless of your pay rate. So the main point is you got to get up, you got to face the reality. You have bills to pay, you have responsibilities to do, to execute on your responsibilities at home and whatever your situation is. You got to get going. Okay, so these are some of the websites that, and I haven't looked for a job for about a decade now, after that incident, since I landed this job. But these are some of the websites that, oh, this thing keeps popping. I'm sorry. But you got to look at the website. So these are some of the websites. There's a ZipRecruiter, Indeed. Oh, I think this is LinkedIn, Indeed, Monster. And I found another website, which is the Balance Career, a while ago. So let me go to resumes. Okay, so when applying for a job, you got to make sure your resume is clean. There's a lot of tips online on how to do a good resume, on how to complete a good, reasonable, and impressive resume. I will tell you from my experience. Now, I would see resumes and you have like goals and I think it's goals and mission or whatever. It's like a quick paragraph on the top. It's a good read for me, but I don't really pay attention to that one. It's cool because no one's going to say anything negatively about themselves, right? So it's always going to be a positive goal. Is it believable? I mean, it's right. I mean, it's fine as when you're reading it on the resume, but I don't count on it. Everybody wants to do good, right? So resume is very important. Make sure you have the pertinent information there. You have your name, you have your email address, your phone number. Make sure they're correct information. And that way we know, or I would know how to reach to you. Goals and mission on the top of your resume, it's fine. You can put it there. If you don't want to put it there, I would probably recommend just putting like a sentence or two, but don't put 4 sentences, a paragraph about what your goal in life is going to be. And then you go back to your work history. So if you have plugged in your resume on any of those websites, make sure you're updating them, especially monster.com and LinkedIn. They'll just go ahead and shoot your resumes on different companies. And if you don't update it, I would say update it every month to make sure that you have the most current information. So when you go down to the current work history, make sure that there's no gaps in the years, because I do look for that. So make sure you have the company name that you worked for and the dates. So your dates have to have a good storyline, okay? And then just a quick, I would even suggest to make sure that you're doing a bullet points of your responsibilities from that employment history, from that employment company. So you can just put bullet points. I don't need a paragraph. I don't like reading left to right a whole story. Give me the bullet points and concise information about your job and job responsibilities and tasks that you did for that company when you were working for them. So those are some of my tips. Let's see. Okay, I think that is it for resume. Make sure you have your references in there, because once you're offered the position, they will request for reference information. If you don't have it there, then they might get turned off with your resume that it's incomplete. All right. Let's move on to application. So when you're applying for the job, make sure that you are trying to speak to the person that's responsible for setting up your interview. Okay. It can be an HR, it could be a business office manager, it could just be an assistant, a receptionist in the front, but make sure you are getting through the right person where you can schedule your appointment for an interview. You can also do walk-ins. A lot of people do that. When you do a walk-in in a job, make sure you have a copy of your resume. Make sure you have a copy of your resume. Make sure you already have your identification, your driver's license, and your reference check, reference check informations. And most of the time, those are saved up on your phone anyway. So you can also do a walk-in, but make sure you are prepared and probably even already dressed up for a job interview, just in case they put you on the spot, right? So let's see, what else do I have in here? So that is it. So once you've nailed a job interview, okay, this is golden. Once you nailed a job interview, make sure that at home, before you go to your job interview, make sure that you've researched the company and that you've looked at their website. Okay, if they have different locations, make sure you know from the holistic company standpoint that you know what the company is about, what's their mission statement, and making sure that you have a full knowledge of the company. I do ask that question whenever I'm interviewing somebody. So have you looked up our company? Do you know anything about this company? So it gives me, it'll give you an added points with that if you do know about the company. And I've had interviews before. I've interviewed people before where I asked that question and they would say, you know what, honestly, no, I didn't. And I was like, okay, you're applying for a company that you don't know what it's about. So it is a turnoff. So make sure that you are you're looking it up and Googling it up to make sure you know what the company is about. Let me go back a little bit. So if they have not called you for an interview, let me just insert this quick tip. If they have not called you for an interview, go ahead and call them. Okay, because what I heard before is that it takes about 2 weeks. When you've applied for a position, then it can take about 1 to 2 weeks for them to call you back. Sometimes it doesn't happen like that. I mean, with the times that we have right now, you don't have 2 weeks to wait if they're going to call you back or whatnot, right? Because technically, let's just say you applied for the position, you got a call after 2 weeks, they set you up for an interview the week after, they interviewed you, and then they offered you the position. After they offered you the position, you have to still run through the criminal background checks and all the drug tests and things like that. It takes another 1 week. It takes about a month and a half for the whole process alone. And then you start your job, you get paid after when? After 2 weeks, right? So we're talking about 2 months. 2 months that you have bills to pay within 2 months that you haven't made any payment because you're waiting for your first paycheck, right? So let me go back to that one. If they have not called you, you've applied, you filled out the application, you emailed them your resume, and they haven't called you back, make sure you go ahead and call them. Call them and send them an email and ask them, I applied on this day, I sent you the resume, I'm just following up to see if there's any position available from me or whatnot. Because I will admit there were other resumes that were submitted to me and I would look at them and then I'd forget, shamefully, because I'm a hiring manager and I know that people need a job. They need a job and they have bills to pay. But sometimes I forget and that's not cool. I shouldn't forget, but sometimes I forget. So if I see an email come through and I see that someone is sending a follow-up email asking for an interview, then that'll give me, if I'm reading that email right now, then I'll go ahead and call that person right away. Hey, and I will usually do a telephone screening if it's even worth it to schedule a face-to-face interview, right? So make sure you're doing a follow-up email, a follow-up phone call to whoever's in charge of the interview schedule. All right, so there is that. Now, on your interview, okay, so once you've been scheduled for an interview, make sure you are, like I said, make sure you've researched the company, yeah, and then make sure you arrive early. So if your interview is scheduled for 9 o'clock, make sure you get in there eight. The earliest would be 8:30, or the latest I would say is around 8:30, because you just never know. You can be stuck in traffic. Make sure you wake up early. Make sure you're all pumped up and ready. And you just never know. So make sure you're getting there, you're arriving at your interview half an hour before your scheduled interview. Make sure you're in business attire. And let me share the screen, because I did this as part of the PowerPoint and I'm excited to share this. So make sure that you are wearing a formal business attire, appropriate clothing, appropriate hairdo, okay? No big earrings or loop earrings, nothing like that. Nose rings are not, I wouldn't recommend that. Making sure you don't have, for me, okay, make sure you don't have, because I work in healthcare, make sure you don't have super long nails, okay? Because how am I going to hire you in healthcare if you have super long nails, right? And I kid you not, I've interviewed some applicants that are wearing jeans, that are wearing flip-flops. And this is a formal interview. So you really need to be wearing appropriate clothing, but you see them from time to time. And it just doesn't give you a good impression of that candidate that you're interviewing, right? Okay, so there we go. Now, make sure during the interview process that you are smiling, okay? And just being truthful. Just relax, smile, and be yourself. Okay. So what are some of the things that I ask? That's right. Negotiate the best possible salary or pay. I love that. This is Mr. Aristotle Castro stating that. And I forgot to put our banner because I went on and on and on without putting that up. All right. Oh, yes. Okay, great. So let me go through the interview process. So when I interview somebody, like I said, I go look at the work history. So on the work history, I'm going to be asking from the most recent to 5 years ago. I think I usually look at 5 or 7 years ago. So I look at it and I usually ask, what do you like most about your job, on that company? And what did you not like about what you did at that time? So those two things, what did you like the most and what did you not like the most? Is that right? Did I ask that question right? And then I go through it. And then it depends on the response. Then I would go ahead and dig in. Just dig in a little bit more. It depends on the situation, right? So that if they said that, I didn't like my previous boss, then I would dig in a little bit more into that. Well, tell me more about it. Tell me more what you did not like about your previous boss. What exactly happened? And I would dig into situational questions because I work in healthcare. So what we do is really hands-on. So I would ask situational questions about a past experience from that job. And what we believe from the company that I work for, what we believe is that the past behavior predicts the future behavior. So if you dealt a past situation on a negative or a positive manner, then there's a high probability for you to respond positively or negatively in future situations if it's the same situation. Okay, so in healthcare, for me, I can only relate. I can dish this out. I would probably ask, well, not probably. I do ask questions about. Tell me about a patient complaint or a family complaint that you dealt with. What was the situation and how did you resolve that? What was the end result? Doesn't have to be all nice and dandy, but I want to know the truth. How did you fix that situation? What are the steps that you did, right? Did you report to your supervisor? Did you handle that with the utmost customer service satisfaction that you can do, right? So, and then I would go ahead and dig in a little bit more. And then I would go to the next previous work employment history, and then I would do the same thing. Depending on the position that they are looking for, um, then I would direct, certain situations like that. There are also some questions that I would throw in as, for example, you have a task and you have a due date for your task, and you have other team members that are involved in that due date completion. How will you manage that task, knowing that you have to manage a team, maybe, another person or two of you? How would you manage that task? In that way, y'all can meet that due date. So those are some of the situations. For example, another one would be like infection control, because I'm in healthcare. How do you implement infection control, or did you implement an infection control? Was there a process that you implemented before that? It's a complete process that you not invented, but the one that you implemented yourself, right? So those are some of the things that I am personally looking for. Let's see what else. There was an interview that I conducted before, and I had asked this lady, and I had asked her, hi friends, thank you for, that's so funny, we have moderator. Thank you, Ness. Thank you for logging in. And Giselle, thank you. All right, so there was a question before that I asked this lady that I was interviewing, and I asked her, if I would to go back to your previous boss, what do you think your previous boss will say about you? It's the same question as what are your strengths, right? What are your strengths and your weaknesses? But I just kind of twisted the question. I asked her, if I ask your previous boss, what do you think he or she will tell me about you? And her response, well, I don't know. I mean, you can go ahead and call him and ask him what he thinks about me. I just don't know what he's going to tell you. So that just tells me that you didn't depart from your previous job in a good term. So what happened there, right? A red flag for me is when the person that I'm interviewing keeps talking bad about their previous employment. So if they keep talking bad about them, that's not a good trait. I think it's a red flag, and I don't think I would want to hire or offer that person a job or a position at my company, at the company that I work for, because I'm also an employee, right? So there's just so many examples of job interviews, but I think the most important part is to make sure that you're being true to yourself. Make sure you're doing some type of a self-reflection, because you're an adult now. You want to have a job, and you want to maintain a job. So it is important that you are being professional during your job interview. Make sure you're smiling. Take away that pride. You can do it. You're here, you're looking for a job, and I'm the best person that you can hire for the position that you have, that's open right now. So make sure you're presenting well, make sure you're smiling, don't talk too much, just answer the question that's being asked of you, be honest, and make sure you're quick to think. Okay, so while the interviewer is asking you some question or asking you the question, make sure you already have an answer brewing in your mind, and pick the best possible answer that you can dish out during that interview. Oh, yes. Thank you, Judy. Thank you for logging in. So those are some of my tips. It's very, very important. Now, friends, if you are looking into changing your career, that is a very big step that you might want to have a good reflection. If you're thinking of, doing a different type of career, that you have to do some type of schooling or certification, make sure from the financial standpoint that you are good to go. If you need to have a part-time job while you complete that certification, while you complete that new degree that you're working on, then you got to do that. You got to make sure that you're meeting your financial goals from the family standpoint, from the personal standpoint, and that everything makes sense. So that's pretty much it, my friends. I'm trying to make sure that our session is within 30 minutes. And if you guys have any questions and you're watching this on replay, make sure that you are putting your comment on the section below and ask me anything, or put your comment about your experience before and what worked for you and what didn't work for you. I can only share what I know because this is what I do as a hiring manager. And it can be very frustrating, but you have to snap out of it. You need to go and fix your resume. You need to go ahead and look for a job. Go ahead, and there's a lot of social media platforms out there, even on Facebook, that I'm sure that you can hook up, that you can connect with somebody that can possibly give you the best job that you want for yourself, or that you think that will fit for you. The pay rate and salary is another topic that you can negotiate. So it really just depends on your experience and expertise and what kind of job you're looking for. Now, after your interview, make sure you follow up with the interviewer, just to kind of check in and thank that interviewer for the interview that was allotted for you, and just to contact you if you are the best candidate for that open position. But anyway, my friends, this concludes our session for tonight. Thank you so much for tuning in. And if you are watching on replay, don't forget to click that like button and subscribe if you haven't done so. And I'll see you next Friday Night Live here, or Friday Night Live here on YouTube. Goodbye, friends.